Hey everyone, and welcome back to Beyond the Unknown. I'm Alex Carter.
And I'm Olivia Reyes.
We are back for episode 8.
Wow, episode 8 already.
Yeah, time flies when you're having fun, right? Beyond religion. The UAP disclosure. That's what we're tackling today.
Ooh, that's a big one.
It is. And get this, we're going deep into a report that explores the potential impact of UFO disclosure.
On religion and society.
You got it.
I'm already intrigued. This is going to be a wild one. I can feel it.
I think you're right. So buckle up, everyone. We're starting off with a bang.
Yeah.
The Schumer Amendment to the UAP Disclosure Act of 2023.
Okay, so right off the bat, the name Schumer, that's Senator Chuck Schumer, right?
That's him, the one and only.
So he's pushing for the government to finally come clean about UFOs.
You got it. This amendment was a big push to get some real transparency about UAPs. What they are, where they come from, the whole 9 yards.
UAPs, Unidentified Aerial Phenomena. I feel like we're not using the term UFO much these days.
Yeah, it's all UAPs now.
Yeah.
It sounds more official, I guess.
More scientific, maybe. But you know what really struck me about this amendment? The language. They use the term non-human intelligence, NHI, like it's a given, over 24 times.
Yeah, I noticed that too. It's not exactly subtle wording, is it?
Not at all. It's like they're saying, hey, we know these things aren't from around here, and they're not even trying to hide it.
It definitely makes you wonder what they know that they're not telling us, right?
Right. And it's not just Schumer who's on board with this. We're talking serious bipartisan support.
Yeah.
Senators Rubio, Gillibrand, Young, Heinrich, they all signed on.
Which is pretty rare these days, especially for something as controversial as UFOs.
Exactly. It shows you that this is being taken seriously at the highest levels of government. But of course, it wouldn't be a government issue without some pushback, right?
But, there's always pushback. And in this case, it came primarily from Republican senators and representatives Turner, Rogers, McConnell, Johnson.
Interesting. So we've got some folks who are all for disclosure and others who are digging in their heels.
Yep. And the report points out something pretty interesting. There seems to be a connection between those who are resisting the amendment and ties to big defense contractors. The usual suspects, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon.
Okay, now that raises some red flags.
Yeah.
Defense contractors fighting against UFO disclosure. Why would they care?
It makes you wonder if there's more to this than just national security concerns, right?
Absolutely. And then you add in David Grush, the whistleblower. He comes out and claims that the U.S. government has actually recovered, wait for it, non-human spacecraft.
Hold on. Non-human spacecraft.
Yeah.
Like crashed alien spaceships.
Yeah, that's what he's saying. And he says they're running these secret, unsanctioned crash retrieval programs.
Yeah. Who does he say is involved in these programs?
You guessed it. Companies like Lockheed Martin and Raytheon.
So we've got powerful politicians pushing for disclosure. We've got defense contractors seemingly resisting it. And we've got a whistleblower claiming the government is hiding alien technology. It's like something out of a movie.
It's a lot to take in, I have to say. But it really begs the question, what's the real story here?
Is it about national security? Or is there something else going on? Are we talking about a battle for control over advanced technology? Maybe even a race for unimaginable profits?
That's the million-dollar question, and it's one we're going to be exploring as we dive deeper into this report. But to really understand all of this, I think we need to go back in time a bit and look at some of the key figures who brought UFO research into the government spotlight in the first place.
You mean people like Senator Harry Reid? I know he was a big advocate for UFO research.
Oh, absolutely. Reid was a driving force. He was instrumental in launching the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, 8TIP, back in 2007.
Yeah, 8TIP. That's one of those acronyms that gets thrown around a lot in the UFO world. What was it exactly?
It was a government-funded program to investigate UFO sightings. And Reid was really the one who made it happen. Senator Stevens and Inouye were also key players in getting it off the ground.
But Reid's interest in UFOs wasn't just political, right? There was something more personal driving him.
Yeah, Reid grew up near Area 51.
Area 51, the legendary home of all things alien.
That's the one. So he was no stranger to stories about strange lights in the sky. And his friend Senator Stevens actually had his own unexplained aerial encounter while he was piloting a plane.
Really? A close encounter. What happened?
We don't know all the details. It was something that Stevens kept pretty close to the vest, but it clearly had a profound impact on him. It solidified his belief that these phenomena needed serious investigation.
So you've got Reid with his childhood steeped in Area 51 lore, and then this close encounter experience from a trusted colleague. That's a powerful combination. It's no wonder he was so passionate about getting ATIP up and running.
Absolutely. And it leads us to another fascinating character in this story, Robert Bigelow.
Bigelow. Remind me what his deal was.
Well, he was a successful businessman, but he had this deep fascination with the paranormal.
The paranormal. So we're talking ghosts and ESP and all that.
That's right. In the 90s, he experienced a personal tragedy, the loss of a close family member.
I'm sorry to hear that loss can really shake you to your core.
It did for Bigelow. It led him down a path of exploring questions about the afterlife consciousness, the possibility of non-human intelligence.
I can see how that might happen. When you face something like that, it can make you question everything.
Bigelow was a man of action, though. He didn't just sit around and ponder these questions. He founded Bigelow Aerospace, a private space company. And then he went a step further and started the National Institute for Discovery Science, NIDS, to formally investigate paranormal phenomena.
Wow, his own paranormal research institute. That's dedication.
He was all in. And this is where Skinwalker Ranch enters the picture.
Skinwalker Ranch, the place with all the stories about UFO sightings, cattle mutilations, those strange creatures I've heard about it. It's like the Bermuda Triangle of the paranormal.
That's one way to put it. Bigelow actually purchased Skinwalker Ranch specifically to try and get to the bottom of those mysteries. He poured resources into it, brought in scientists, former military personnel, intelligence officials, all to document and understand the bizarre events that were happening there.
So Skinwalker Ranch was like his own personal Area 51. What was he hoping to find?
It's hard to say for sure, but he was clearly convinced that something extraordinary was going on there. And his team at NIDS did report some pretty wild stuff. High-frequency sound waves, spikes in radiation levels, equipment malfunctions that defied explanation. It sounds like they were dealing with forces beyond our current understanding.
So we've got government programs investigating UFOs. We've got private individuals pouring their own resources into paranormal research. And it all seems to be converging on this one incredibly strange location. Skinwalker Ranch. Things are starting to get really interesting, wouldn't you say?
They are, and we're just getting started. There's so much more to uncover as we delve deeper into this report. But for now, I think we need to take a break and let our listeners absorb all this.
Sounds good to me. We'll be back in a flash. So don't go anywhere, folks. Before we go any further, let's talk more about Skinwalker Ranch itself. It's not just some random piece of land, right? This place has a long, strange history. That goes way back, even before Bigelow bought it.
You're absolutely right. It's located in the Uinta Basin of Utah, a place the Ute and Navajo tribes have long considered sacred, and also kind of spooky, to put it mildly.
Kind of spooky. From what I've heard, this place is downright terrifying.
Well, yeah, there are stories. The ranch's name, Skinwalker, it actually comes from Navajo legend. It refers to a malevolent witch that can shapeshift, and the whole area is said to be haunted by these beings.
So you're telling me this place is steeped in Native American lore, legends of shape-shifting witches, and a reputation for being cursed. That's already enough to give me the creeps. And then you add on top of that all those modern accounts of weirdness. It's like a recipe for a paranormal pressure cooker.
You could say that the modern stories start cropping up in the 1950s and 60s, lights in the sky. Unexplained craft livestock disappearing or turning up mutilated in really bizarre ways.
It sounds like something straight out of a horror movie. Did anyone ever investigate these stories back then?
Well, before Bigelow came along, it was mostly just rumors, local legends passed down through generations. But when Bigelow bought the ranch in 1996, he brought in his NIDS team with the goal of applying some actual scientific rigor to the investigation.
He wanted hard evidence, not just spooky stories.
Exactly. They wanted to document everything, see if they could find any proof to back up the legends. And you know what? They did record all sorts of strange phenomena. High-frequency sound waves that seem to come out of nowhere, sudden spikes in radiation levels, equipment malfunctions that their engineers just couldn't explain.
So they were finding things that couldn't be easily dismissed as hoaxes or just overactive imaginations.
Right. And there's this book, Hunt for the Skinwalker, written by Dr. Colm Kelleher. He was one of the lead researchers at NIDS. And let me tell you, that book is full of chilling anecdotes and unexplainable events.
Any that stand out in your memory?
One that always stuck with me was about this blue orb. It just appeared out of thin air, and then shortly after, several of the ranch dogs, they ran into the woods and were later found horribly mutilated.
Okay, that is just creepy. A glowing blue orb and mutilated dogs. That's the kind of stuff that nightmares are made of. Even the biggest skeptic would have to admit something weird is going on at Skinwalker Ranch.
It's definitely a place that challenges your sense of reality. And the ranch's story doesn't end there. In 2016, it was purchased by Brandon Fugel.
Brandon Fugel, the real estate guy.
The one and only. He's a successful entrepreneur, and he was actually pretty skeptical at first. He figured there had to be a logical explanation for all the strange activity reported at the ranch.
So he bought the ranch to debunk the myths.
In a way, I guess. He assembled a team of scientists and investigators and took a much more transparent approach to the research. He even allowed cameras on the property to document their investigations.
So what happened? Did Fugel's skepticism hold up?
Not exactly. His team encountered plenty of unexplained phenomena, too. High levels of radiation in certain areas, underground cavities that seemed to appear and disappear, even more equipment, malfunctions that defied logic. Drones used for aerial surveys would inexplicably fall out of the sky. Electromagnetic sensors would pick up anomalies that couldn't be accounted for.
It's like the ranch itself is resisting our attempts to understand it. No matter who investigates, no matter how skeptical they are, the strangeness persists. So where does that leave us?
It leaves us with a lot more questions than answers, that's for sure. But before we dive into those questions, I think we need to shift gears a bit and talk about another figure who's played a big role in this whole world of paranormal and UFO research, Hal Puthoff.
Okay, Hal Puthoff. The name rings a bell. Didn't he do some groundbreaking work with remote viewing?
That's him. Puthoff had an amazing career, and his work at the Stanford Research Institute back in the 1970s really brought remote viewing into the public consciousness.
I gotta admit, I'm not really up on my remote viewing. Can you give me a quick rundown?
Sure, it's basically a type of extrasensory perception where a person can see distant locations, objects, events, all without any physical contact, like mental teleportation.
Whoa, that's some serious mind-bending stuff.
Yeah.
Was this considered legitimate science back then?
It was definitely controversial, but you might be surprised to hear that the CIA actually took it pretty seriously. They funded a program called the Stargate Project. It used psychic spies trained in remote viewing to try and gather intelligence during the Cold War.
Hold on. You're telling me the CIA had psychic spies? That sounds like something straight out of a James Bond movie.
I know, right? But it was a real program, and they even had some success with it. There are accounts of remote viewers accurately describing things like Soviet military installations, stuff they couldn't have possibly known about through normal means.
Okay, so this wasn't just some fringe theory. The government was taking remote viewing seriously. So where does Puthoff fit into all of this?
Puthoff was one of the pioneers of remote viewing research. He developed these really rigorous methodologies and experimental protocols to try to bring some scientific legitimacy to the whole field of psychic phenomena.
So he was trying to turn ESP into a hard science.
Exactly. And you know what? His work caught the attention of some very powerful people. One of them was a major general named Ed Thompson. He was a total skeptic at first, but after witnessing a demonstration where a remote viewer accurately described a hidden Soviet military facility, he became a believer.
That's a pretty dramatic conversion story. It sounds like Puthoff had a way of winning over even the toughest skeptics. But what else was he involved in? His interests went beyond just remote viewing, right?
They did. He was also fascinated by the potential of really advanced technologies, especially those related to UFOs. He actually got involved with the Stars Academy of Arts and Science. It was co-founded by Luis Elizondo, a former intelligence official, and Tom DeLonge.
Wait a minute, Tom DeLonge. The guy from Blink-182, the rock band.
That's the one. He's been into UFOs for years. He co-founded the Stars Academy to raise awareness about the phenomenon and push for more government disclosure.
So what were they trying to do? Make contact with aliens? Build their own UFOs?
Their stated goal was to advance our understanding of UFOs and to explore the potential of these crazy new technologies. Puthoff was really into the idea of reverse engineering recovered UFO technology.
Reverse engineering alien tech. That's pretty ambitious, to say the least.
I know, it sounds like something straight out of science fiction. But Puthoff was a brilliant scientist. He believed that by studying those materials, we could unlock all kinds of breakthroughs in areas like propulsion energy generation and material science.
So we're not just talking about little green men. We're talking about potentially revolutionary technology. The kind of stuff that could transform our world.
Exactly. Puthoff was especially interested in zero-point energy, the idea of tapping into the energy of the vacuum of space itself.
So unlimited clean energy. That would be a game changer.
It would. But Puthoff was also aware of the potential dangers of such advanced technology. You know, that whole dual-use dilemma.
Yeah, the idea that any technology powerful enough to help us could also be used to hurt us.
Right. He was very concerned about the ethical implications of these advancements. He believed we had to be really careful about how we developed and used these technologies.
It's a lot to think about. It's exciting, but also a little bit scary. We're talking about forces that could reshape our world for better or for worse. And it all ties back to these mysterious objects in our skies, these UAPs.
It does. And as we delve further into this report, we're going to uncover even more layers to this story, more connections between government programs, private research, and the search for answers to one of the biggest questions humanity has ever faced. Are we alone in the universe?
So we've covered a lot of ground government programs, shadowy figures, Skinwalker Ranch, remote viewing. It's all pretty mind-blowing. But there's one aspect of this whole UFO thing that I think is the most fascinating of all. What does it mean for religion? If we really do find evidence of extraterrestrial life, how does that impact our faith, our beliefs?
It's a huge question, isn't it? One that has haunted humanity for centuries, and now it feels like we might be getting closer to an answer. Many religions are built on this idea of human exceptionalism. We're special, created in God's image. But what happens if we discover that we're not alone?
I mean, think about it. It's like that moment when people realized the Earth wasn't the center of the universe. Everything they thought they knew was turned upside down. And this feels even bigger. You
Mm.
know, if we find out there are other intelligent beings out there, maybe even more advanced than us, it forces us to completely rethink our place in the cosmos. What does it mean to be human if we're not the only intelligent species in the universe?
Right. It challenges our entire understanding of creation, our relationship to the divine. It has the potential to really shake things up at a fundamental level. And I think it's safe to say there will be a wide range of reactions within religious communities.
So how do you think different religious groups might respond?
Well, I think some people might embrace the idea of a broader creation, seeing extraterrestrial life as further proof of God's power and imagination. It could actually strengthen their faith.
Yeah, I can see that, like saying, wow, the universe is even more amazing than we ever imagined.
Exactly. And others might try to reinterpret their sacred texts or emphasize the vastness of God's creation, finding ways to reconcile their existing beliefs with the existence of extraterrestrial life.
So a kind of adaptation, a way of fitting this new knowledge into their current framework.
Right. But then there will be others for whom this is much harder to accept. Especially those with very literal interpretations of their religious texts. The idea that we're not alone could really challenge some of their core beliefs about creation and humanity's role in the universe.
It could be a real crisis of faith for some people.
Definitely. And it makes you wonder how religious institutions would respond. Could they adapt to such a radical shift?
Would they try to integrate this new reality into their doctrines? Or would they double down on their traditional teachings? It's hard to say. It could even lead to divisions within religions or the emergence of entirely new belief systems.
Yeah, new religions based on contact with alien civilizations. It sounds like something out of science fiction, but is it really that far-fetched?
I mean, think about all the new spiritual movements that pop up all the time. And if we did make contact with some kind of advanced extraterrestrial civilization, well, who knows what kind of impact that would have on human spirituality?
Yeah, it's fascinating to think about.
What about the Catholic Church? They're a pretty traditional institution. How do you think they would react?
It's interesting. You might be surprised to hear this, but the Vatican has actually already addressed the possibility of extraterrestrial life, and they've said that the discovery of alien life wouldn't contradict Catholic doctrine.
Really, that's not what I would have expected.
Yeah, they've actually been pretty open to the idea. They see it as a testament to the grandeur of God's creation. There's even a Jesuit astronomer, Brother Guy Consolmagno. He's the director of the Vatican Observatory, and he's been pretty vocal about the possibility of extraterrestrial life and how it fits into Catholic teachings.
So even the Catholic Church is acknowledging that we need to be ready for this possibility.
It seems that way. And it's not just the Vatican. Theologians and thinkers from various faiths are starting to grapple with the potential implications of extraterrestrial life. It's definitely a conversation that's happening right now, and it's only going to get louder as we learn more about our place in the universe.
It really feels like we could be on the verge of a major paradigm shift. Not just in terms of science and technology, but in terms of how we see ourselves as humans and our place in the cosmos.
It's exciting and a little bit scary. We're venturing into uncharted territory. Who knows what we might find, but it's definitely going to be a wild ride.
Well, everyone, that's it for this episode of Beyond the Unknown. We've covered a lot of ground tonight, from government secrets to ancient mysteries, from psychic spies to the Vatican's take on aliens.
We've really only just scratched the surface, though. This conversation is far from over, and we'll be back next time to dive even deeper into the unknown.
Until then, stay curious, keep exploring, and never stop questioning.
Because the truth is out there. We just have to be open to finding it.